Yeah. Hi, welcome to another session of mock interviews with Ankit Jain. So this is me, Ankit Jain. So I'm a technical architect at an MNC. I'm 18X certified. I'm active in Salesforce events. I have the YouTube channel by the name Mock Interviews with Ankit Jain. So whatever are the older recordings that we have conducted mock interviews or discussed on the resume tips, those are available on the YouTube. This is my LinkedIn URL, so you can feel free to connect with me. You can scan the code as well. So the information about upcoming session is available on the LinkedIn, or you can also find this information in the my WhatsApp group as well. So you can join this WhatsApp group. And by chance you want to have a session with me, you can book the slot on TopMate. So the link will be available in the video description.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll be first covering around the LWC. LWC is kind of an essence that is much needed in this job market right now. So there are various LWC component, LWC related questions that come in.
Okay.
First you need to understand what is the difference between the Visual Force and the Lightning Web component.
Okay.
Or so Visual Force was like everything was a markup, it was having its own tags and all, and there was view state that was there coming into picture. With LWC, it uses the standard web component framework of the browser, so it's more browser friendly. The performance is great, and it has a larger, it's a good security, it's more secure compared to Visual Force page, and then it's stateless.
Okay.
The only means before LWC there was Aura. Again, Aura was a custom framework by Salesforce. So it took what used to happen is like we used to write the Aura component, and then those have to be translated back into the basic HTML. Then only browser would be able to understand. So due to this reason, the performance was a bit slow, and also it was two-way binding for all the things. Like as we all know, for Aura, directly automatically it does the binding, but with LWC, wherever you need, you have to configure the binding yourself.
Okay.
So first, conceptually, you have to be clear, like why means what types exactly is LWC.
Okay.
Then we'll go over like what are the different, go into the granular detail. Let's set the base first, and then let's get started with that. So after we talked about like the basic LWC, like why it is, next comes what are different lifecycle hooks.
Okay.
So lifecycle hooks, it starts with constructor, the very base, then the connected callback, then the rendered callback, and then the disconnected. Sorry,
disconnected callback.
yeah. Disconnected. I was about to say that. Yeah. So this is the most common question, and then you have the question comes around the decorators like @via, @track, @API. So @track, to be fair, with primitive data types, you don't need to use that one now because by default it's
Ankit,
yeah.
Ankit,
Sorry.
yeah,
As per the official documentation, I don't see the render method anywhere because I saw here it just talks about the constructor, connected callback, disconnect callback, rendered callback. But to check like what's around that, so in 2020 there I saw blogs around that. Render multiple templates, I think. Let's go to that. So here it's like LWC FLC they're talking about. There's no mention of any method as I see it here. But again, I will do a check because I have also not seen that render method. Earlier it used to be available, but nowadays I don't see that. So after this life cycle,
okay, Ankit, no.
yeah, after this life cycle hook, the question that I told you about the added track variable. Like if you want by default for primitive data types, it's already reactive. Reactive means whatever you make the changes, it's in the HTML of the LWC that would get reflected. So @ track is now used only for the custom or any non-prevented data type. And then we have @wire. @wire, basically what I want is like by default, whenever that component means I mentioned that @wire, it by default, without any writing much code in LWC, I am able to do a query from the database. Like I need to write an cacheable method. So in the cacheable method, it would get called through @wire. It would get assigned to the variable that where I have put it like @wire. So it's useful in scenarios where we don't have any condition or any parameter to be passed. We just want to get that data. Now it's around @API. @API is only used like suppose you have a parent and a child component and you want to pass an attribute, like you want to pass the data instead of using events, you want to just cut it short and just pass the attributes as a parameter. So you can use @API and then pass those attributes to the child component. It was around those. And another interview question that comes with along with that is when do you use @wire and when do you do imperative calling? Imperative calling means I am like I want to have the full control. I don't want I want to control the flow. Like suppose I don't want to do a DM query all the time. I want to do some sanity checks like on the client side. If those conditions fulfill, then only the Apex should get called. So if I want that level of degree of control, I would use imperative calling. Also, another scenario is like if you want to perform any DML. For DML as well, you will have to use imperative calling only. So if someone asks you when you should go with alternate wire and when you have to go with imperative calling, you have to mention like when you want more degree of control and you want to assign the values coming from the server by yourself into the variables, and you want to either you don't want to make that method cacheable, and those scenarios you would go with imperative calling. Is it clear?
Yeah, Ankit. We can use imperative method only for DML operations only.
No. You can do the query as well with imperative calling. There's no restriction around that.
Okay.
Mainly, people are means what I have noticed so far is like don't think it like where around the DML and all of those things. So, but you will have to know those things. Then only it will be worth it. So that's around that. The next thing around LWC is what is sorry
Communication.
Okay, communication. If you want to talk about that, see LWC to LWC, there are like through events you can do that through your @API. You can if they're parent child, you can use those.
Yeah.
Another way is like lightning message channel.
Yeah.
So lightning message channel is like it's like a standard way. Like whether you want to have the communication from LWC to LWC, LWC to Aura, LWC to VF page, it works like a PubSub model only, I would say.
Yeah.
But here's a catch for that. You would need to configure the lightning message channel as well. Like for LMS, we need to have that lightning message channel, and that channel as well. It would be you will be able to create only you through VS Code. You don't have a UI for that.
Okay.
So there are some methods like you will need to override when you are using that one. So these are few of the ways like where we are able to do communication between LWC components.
Ankit, if interviewer asks the question like anything like the LMS or anything, so we need to explain about the what is LMS, why we need LMS, and some practical thing like.
Okay. Are you asking like if the panel asks specifically around LMS or they just talk?
Yeah. I'm asking general question. If interviewer asks, what is expectation of interviewer? What they are looking
And
for the answer?
in LMS, what they should be looking means the expectation would be like what is the use case, what problem does it solve? Their focus.
Okay. I got it point. Thank you.
basically an interviewer wants to know like whether you know like because code anybody can get from the internet. But
Yeah, yeah.
but your brain should be like when to use what.
Okay.
You talk about the syntaxes. Panel is least worried about the syntaxes. He is interested more about your thought process. Like when do you would you use that? How does that work?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So that was around your LMS. Very good, very important topic. Apart from that, I would like to talk about one more part here, which not directly related to LWC, but I would say it's related to your Lightning data service. Give me just 1 minute. Let me just, yeah, it's around Lightning data service.
Yeah, yeah.
Lightning data service is the future. Like Lightning data service, you don't need to write Apex.
Yeah.
Whatever other queries, if you need the data, you can directly get it through, like, they are sometimes called as UI API. Sometimes some people call it Lightning data service. There are various names for that. So basically what it does is at the client side itself, it gives you methods like get record or get pick list values. Like if you want to get the pick list values of a particular record type, you can use those as well. So there are numerous possibilities. And now with another part that has come up similar to Lightning data services, your GraphQL. GraphQL is immensely powerful. You can do your query, you can do the DMLs as well now. The core part is like with get record, you would need to have the record ID with you. But with GraphQL, without the ID as well, you can have any other attribute and you can do the query from your Lightning component itself. And what is the response that comes up? You can also format it the way you want. Yeah, better control, I would say. So if you know about GraphQL, it's well and good. But means as I understand it, most probably you won't get it question on GraphQL, but Lightning data service might be a chance like it might get asked.
Okay.
Okay. Let's talk about integration. Let's first understand why do we need integration at all.
Okay.
Integration means like there are two systems which you want to communicate.
Yes.
Why you have two systems? Because you know like one system gives you is good in some particular thing like say order management and one thing is good in CRM. So you want to get the best out of each of those systems. So but the data needs to be shared, then only it would be helpful for your company. So for that reason we do the integration.
Okay.
Under integration there are various integration patterns. First is request and reply. Request and reply, you unknowingly would think like you are already doing it or throughout your career. So how you do it is like you do like in the REST HTTP dot send like in the code you write HTTP dot send in the custom controller. That is your request and reply because your Salesforce would wait until you get the response from the API.
Okay.
It says sometimes also means this waiting is also called as blocking in some terminologies as I've seen on the various books. So that is around request and reply.
Okay.
Second is around fire and forget. Fire and forget is kind of similar to your future method. Like you have like in at the rate future method, you can have the at the rate future in bracket, you put it followed equal to true. And you let the API means just hit that API. You don't wait for that response. User is free. User can do whatever he want on the UI during that duration. Whenever the response comes back, you process that information. Another example of that is your platform events. I hope both of you know about platform events.
Yeah, I know that platform, but I have not practically used. Okay.
Okay, not a problem. It's similar to PubSub only.
Okay.
So what you have is like you publish an event and the other external system would subscribe to that.
Okay.
So that's pretty much how it works. So it's a fire and forget. The next is batch data synchronization. Batch data synchronization means like from Salesforce, you want to send the data to another system. So you would typically means when they talk about this, typically it calls around the batch class. We are doing the call out with batch class. The next is around your data virtualization. Data virtualization means what I want is just the report. You wherever you want to keep it. Like suppose take into example your orders. We all know like SAP is good for order management. But your suppose your sales team actually works on the CRM. So what they want means for reporting, everyone would expect like all the reports to be in single CRM application. So for such scenarios where you don't want to copy that data, but you still want that information to be visible to you, we'll have to go with the Salesforce Connect. So Salesforce Connect is an example of a data virtualization.
Okay.
Uh,
Ankit, they ask also question about inbound integration and outward integration. What step you take? This is a favorite
say,
question for interview.
yeah, so outbound integration is around like from Salesforce to external systems. So what I'm talking about is your outbound.
Okay, okay.
Like,
What is the most frequently used in integration? Bulk
say,
API, that
uh,
like the
what I have seen so far is like people tend to use. One second, let me just change my network. My voice is clear. Hello.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So what I am saying is, uh, so for what I have noticed is people normally go over request and reply because they want like the data should be synced on immediate basis. Also, it's not the best way, but they want that kind of requirement. So we'll have to justify like you shouldn't be doing that. So that's the way I look at it. For this parent forget, okay, we already talked about like example of CA, like platform events, streaming APIs, future methods. Then batch data synchronization, we talked about like Salesforce batch effects with callouts.
Yes, currently I have only no HTTP callouts and great REST resources.
Okay, with batch class,
No, outbound integration.
outbound integration. Yeah, so it would be hit from Salesforce to other system, right?
Request and response.
Okay, request and reply. It's like directly you have hit that. Okay. Yeah, for batch data synchronization, there's another like feature like Salesforce bulk API. So when you want to perform the operation in bulk, you use the bulk API. So both are good examples of your batch data synchronization, your batch class as well as your bulk API. Next is remote call-in. Remote call-in means what you want is like always you hit the data and get the information. It should happen like in some scenarios, like suppose whenever an order is being fulfilled in SAP, that information should be coming into CRM. So this is like they will you will give an API and then the other system will hit it. So it would be an inbound call. So like we normally give the REST API. So the means bulk API is also used here. Your metadata API, tooling API. Basically, your custom Apex API also comes under that. Basically, the intent here is like trigger point is where in the external system, right? So if the other system has the trigger point, then how will you hit that when you will not know? You can't do polling. So in such scenarios, we recommend like remote calling. Like I will not hit the Salesforce not will not hit the SAP. SAP will hit back to CRM like when that operation is complete. Is it clear?
Yes.
If there's any doubt, please clarify because this is important. Any may see, don't be hesitant on any of the questions. Like no question is a silly question. We are all here to learn.
We are getting the data from the external system to the request.
Yeah, and yeah, external system, you're getting that API means the other system is requesting is pushing data into Salesforce. Consider it like that. Is it clear? Or so there's like REST API, your SOAP API, tooling API. All are examples of this remote calling. Sometimes they might want the information from Salesforce due to some reason. That time also we give those APIs to the other system. It's okay. Like, see, you consider it like a use case.
What type
Like
of questions interviewer asked
they would
related
actually
to integration?
they would want like the integration patterns, like what I asked or what I'm answering right now. Why is there need an integration? What is the steps that you follow? Like if suppose you have to do a call out external system, what are different things you do? Then the auth flows. Then there is another open question around the SAML as well. Like the SAML flows, what are different SAML flows that are in place? Let's take it one by one. Let's currently we are talking about the integration patterns. Let's cover that out. Then we'll go to the next topic. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we covered your batch data synchronization. Next is UI data, UI update based on changes in data. Have you done any payment or noticed anything around while doing the payment? After you're done the payment, it says like don't refresh this page. It would get refreshed automatically.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. So many.
Yeah, yeah. So it's an example of your UI data update, UI update based on data. So basically, what would happen is like in the back end, it would kind of do a polling, but it means it's a PubSub model only, but it's like it's internally doing a long polling. Uh, so it's a most common example is your CDC or platform events, streaming API. Means visually is it's very much prominent in your payment because everyone has done payment somewhere or the other. So it's quite relatable to your UI data, UI update based on changes in data. Is it? Are you clear on this?
Yes.
So we talked about data virtualization as well. Like as I told, like Salesforce Connect is one example. So other examples are also available. Like what you do is like you create an LWC component and say do a query on the weather. There is some weather API. You want to show the weather information inside a component and place that on your home page or your record detail page. So that is also virtualizing the data. So like we have made different examples like your Salesforce Connect, your Lightning components, Canvas application. Are you aware about Canvas application?
No, Ankit.
Okay, Canvas application is like you would open that. It's an external application. You would open it from Salesforce. So when you click that one directly or through your login, you won't have to log in again, but you will directly log in into the external system. It's a bit complex in implementation, but there's a option around that.
Okay.
So this is one example around your data virtualization. So I think we have covered all the integration patterns that are therein. Next, we covered to around what are the different steps that we follow to do an integration. So for doing an outbound call, the first thing it's either if it's a public API, then there is no authentication needed. So you can directly just hit through the http.send. But most APIs will not be public because due to security reasons, obviously. So you need to have the access of the other system. So you would need to have the client ID, client secret while connecting to the other system. You would need to have a connected app created in the other system to make it feel comfortable. Like you are going to hit that API, so it should know. So that's why you get the client ID, client secret. So that's why you pass those in your request. Now there are two options, like either you store that client ID, client secret in your custom setting, or you use the name credentials. Name credentials is the best approach around that. So in your code, like you directly use the name credentials and use the http.send. If you don't use the custom setting approach, you will have to go with whitelisting of that, not whitelisting, I would call opening up or adding that URL in your remote site setting, the external systems URL. Now again, it's like an open box, like around different mechanisms around like communicating like to the other system, like to the various auth flows that are in place. So one is your web server flow. Web server flow is like login with Google, whatever you have. That these are actually login flows. Uh, so it's web server flow. You have one. You have another is this one. SP for means one is your web server flow. The one is your JWT token. Means basically the difference is like JWT token. There is no user intervention involved. So where there is like web server where means whatever I'm saying is making sense, or I shall wait. Like you are not able to digest it. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So while we are talking about that different auth flows, I will show you the diagrammatically as well. In this book of Tamim Berries, it's quite clearly mentioned. So your web server flow is quite simple. Like you have like login as button like this. So here it's like it's being navigated. You get the token that is being returned. Basically, the user intervention is required, and that is the core problem in here. The other is your user agent flow. User agent flow is like it's kind of similar only, but it's used for single page application. So the difference here is like instead of token, you're receiving the auth code. Sorry, the other one was auth code, but here it should be token. Token is being returned. The only difference is this. In earlier one, it's like called auth code. Here in the user agent flow, it's called token. Authentication token is being returned. The next part we can talk about is JWT. Like JWT is like the best simple. It's server to server integration. It means the users are pre-authorized. So there is no user intervention that is needed in. Directly you do the integration and it's like works like a charm. Basically, it's like you are extending your CSI certificate. So you are generating token, you sign it, send it across, then the other one that records using a public key, it authenticates the user, and then he is able to access the data. The devices flow is like for your devices, like smart TVs and all of those. Normally, it's not asked, so even asset token flow is kind of similar to that. Username password is like your basic, like you pass directly the username and password. Not at all recommended, but in many projects you will still see that for now. Why? Because it's quite simple to implement. My recommendation is like where don't ever use this username password flow unless it's like a very only option that you have. So this was around your login flows. Now, instead of technical stuff, we'll just talk about like how do we really track around interviews.
Yeah.
So to crack the interview, first you need to have give your introductions quite well. You have to kind of sell yourself. So you have to give your introduction, giving whatever you have. Like what are the it means most of the times I've noticed is like people have good caliper, but are not able to express themselves quite well. For that, like taking into example, like suppose I have to explain myself. So what I would say, My name is Ankit Jain. I'm a technical architect at whatever is the company name. I have total 9+ years of experience. And then I would talk about like I'm 18x certified. I have done 2 cooperative certifications as well. My skill set includes LWC, Aura, Apex, flows, triggers, the security model, Salesforce configuration, customization. I'm well versed with the Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and Experience Cloud. Also, I have implemented the dynamic forms and dynamic actions as well. Uh, that's what I would say. And then what I would say after a pause is like, if you allow me, I would like to elaborate on the project which I recently worked on. Now, what would happen is like the panel's entire focus will be towards the project, and panel would definitely say yes because he wants to know about what you have done in the project. So while explaining, you have to be very much cognizant about what exactly content you would be sharing in. So the way to for explaining that one out is we first tell the problem statement, like taking into example like community cloud implementation. I think both of you would know about community cloud, at least the basic.
Yes, yes, yes.
So what I would say is like how the customer journey would flow. So I would say the core problem that with the company, our client was facing is too many calls. So to reduce the calls, they thought like they would give a self-service portal to the customers. So what customers would do is they would create their account and they would will give them the customer community license. Customer community license, why? Because I don't want to have reports and dashboard. Otherwise, I will have to give them plus license, which has more cost. Another thing is I means I'm able to give them access using sharing set. I won't be able to use the sharing rule here because of the sharing rule is getting enabled only in your plus license. I'm giving login based license here because I don't means I would know like they wouldn't log out most of the times. So to save on the cost, I'm using the login license. Now, as soon as the person does the login, they see the homepage. In the homepage, they are able to see their profile information. So in the profile information, they are able to update those. There is LWC components that are there and to show them custom tailored information related to them. Also, the option of creating a case here. So creating the case, we are utilizing web to case here. In Web2 case, you have the limitation of say of 5,000 cases per day, and we also have the FAQs or knowledge articles in place. Why? Because I don't want like they should be able to help themselves so that the cases are reduced. Yes, so less cases are being raised, so that my agents are able to perform better. Now, what would happen is after raising the case, it would we would means after seeing the knowledge article while raising a case itself, like whenever I would mention enter the subject, the predictions would come about the knowledge article. For knowledge article to be enabled or whoever has to write those knowledge articles, we would need the knowledge user license. So whenever that knowledge article is written, after that we have to publish that one as well. And there are some data categories which are associated with the knowledge articles. So we had done the configuration around that. So after this, knowledge articles are being shown, and still the case person wants to raise the case. So they would click submit, and after that, it would the routing would happen through the omni channel. So the best means we used the algorithm of best available means the means based on the different algorithms we are sending the case to the queue. In the queue, then it's like managed, like we are used queue because we had want to do load balancing. So for you load balancing, queue is the right option. And then there would be multiple people under that queue and who would take that case from there. And then after that case, we have some assignment. Whenever the person assigns that gets assigned that case, he works on that. And then we have configured the support process to a different set of values. So a CC work support agent would go to means we'll have the according to support process to make him enable for good training. Like we are providing them guidance for success, which is the lightning path. For on each of the path, we have given them the important fields or key fields on each of the stages. So they are able to help them. So they work on those, and there's a TAT or SLA in place, which we have implemented so that the things are done right and the customer is getting the good satisfaction. So after like the case gets closed, the a customer would receive an email that your case is closed. So this is around the journey of the customer. Notice here, like the I talked about the business, I talked about the end user flow, I talked about the technical stuff as well.
Yes.
So that is your way. Like you take some 15 minutes to talk about just the project, but go to that much granular level details.
Okay.
Now, what would happen is like the interview would be only on your mostly around your project only. Then project you already know about the things, but you should know the things quite well. Like suppose when I talk about web cookies, I should be able to know. I should know the granular like stats around that, like 5,000 cases only supported. Like what would happen if it would be more? Then I will have to go with REST API. And I should also know around knowledge articles that I would need the knowledge user. Then I have the LWC. Like when I talk about LWC, they would definitely ask me about all the questions like which I talked about in LWC, like related to communication between the components and then your lifecycle hooks, all of those things. Now the next thing that comes around like for interview preparation is the different flows. Flows is quite important. Lightning flows, like when you talk about when you mention it about the skill set. So flows are also of various different types. So one is your record triggered flow. Second is your scheduled flow. You have platform event triggered flow. You have flow orchestrator as well.
Auto launch flow.
Auto, you also have the auto launch flow.
Screen flows.
Yeah, screen flows is also there. So there are various kinds of those. So record triggered flow is also of two types. One is your fast field updates, also known as before flow. Another is your after related records,
Actions and
actions
related.
and related records, which is also called as your after flows. So suppose that you want to do for pre-population of any data, you can go with the before flows since they are much faster and gets executed before triggers as well. After flows are needed, like if suppose you want to call a subflow inside any record triggered flows, that time you can go with after flows, or you want to do an update after on another cross object, then you go with your after flows. Then apart from that, you have the screen flows in place. Screen flows means you want the user interaction. Like on a particular button, you want to create a button with which the flow screen flow would get called, and he would proceed it step by step to the next process and close that. The next flow we have is scheduled flow. Scheduled flow means basically I want like at a particular interval, like every day at say 12 p.m. I want to suppose do a check around like whichever employees have their birthday today, they should get a birthday reminder, means birthday email. So that is achievable using your scheduled flow. Next is platform event triggered flow. Like what happens is like you want like whenever a platform is being triggered, you want to create a record. So you can do that using platform event triggered flow. Next is around your flow orchestrator. It's also another kind of flow. Basically, what you want is like flows of your flows or approval processes. Everything has their own life cycle. But if suppose you want to control the sequence, flow orchestrator is your guide in that. So it would help you sequence the things in a way that you will be able to control those.
Lead
I-
has one life cycle.
Yeah,
Every
I know that, but there's a lack. Basically, the orchestrator has what it means. What the flow orchestrator says is like it. You have to divide the things into steps, and then you have to tell like in step one what should happen, and then like basically what it does is an approval process. You don't have to write the entire thing. Like you will have to break the specific things. Only keep limited. Like it's actually an entire topic called flow orchestrator. So I was just giving a high level idea around that. It helps orchestrate the things, different automations that you have. There's a very good video that is created by Mira on YouTube. You can search around that flow orchestrator. So these are the things that are there in around your flows.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are two things. One is your identity provider, and another is your service provider. Identity provider is like Google, like when you implement, like if you have the site saying like login with Google. So here Google is acting like an identity provider. It is actually storing that information, and based on your account in Google, the other site is authenticating you. Service provider is like your external application, like say Facebook. Like Facebook, you have the option of sign in with Google or sign up with Google or log in with Google. So both of these things come into the picture of SAML flows. So where it is like IDP initiated flow and SP initiated flow. IDP initiated means identity provider initiated flow. Like, have you heard about Okta identity provider?
No.
Hmm. So it's like an application like where you have the different groups. You have your own user created there. It's basically industry-wide use for user management. Like it's basically has different groups for different applications inside that. So what happens is like when you authenticate with your Okta account, you were able to see what are different applications that you have access to. So that is your like your identity provider IDP initiated flow. So I'm logging into the application through my credentials, and then I see the different application. Then I can open each of them. SP initiated flow is like I give you like the my community website's URL and ask you to log in with Okta or log in with Google. So it is a SP initiated because you are now after logging into your service provider like your web community. I am asking you to enter the credentials of your uh, identity provider, like say Google or Salesforce, whatever, whichever you use. So these two concepts are quite important. As IDP initiated flow and SP initiated flow.